back to another episode of the IBJJF podcast. My guest today is Jake Watson, and we are going to recap the IBJJF FloGrappling Grand Prix that went down this past Friday, March 3rd. Jake, thanks for being here.
Danny O'Donnell, it is a pleasure as always to be part of the IBJJF podcast. You know that I think that this has just taken the sport in a great direction, and you're doing a great job with it. You and I have been involved in different parts of the jiu-jitsu community, and it's really cool to see the direction it's going, especially, FloGrappling and the IBJJF partnering together on a Grand Prix. I mean, we saw the one that I last was at, I commentated, where Tainan Lebre, who we'll get to later, actually won that Grand Prix. But it's really cool just to see how, the quality in matchmaking is getting better and better. So yeah, thank you for having me. Very exciting.
Of course. This was the first GP of 2023. We had a female heavyweight GP, male lightweight GP, 3 incredible super fights, including a main event with some different rules. Like you said, we'll get to that in time. But let's start out with the female heavyweight GP. We had 14 gi world titles between these athletes. If you add in their no gi world titles, it's even more. Something me and Samir talked about in the lead up to the event. But we had Nachieli De Jesus, we had Ana Carolina Vieira, Melissa Stricker, and Andressa Sintra. So when these competitors came together and they were announced and you knew that they were going to be contending for the female heavyweight GP, what were your initial thoughts on that group of athletes?
Well, I think that my initial thoughts on it were, okay, this is an interesting spread of athletes, right? Like, this is very, very impressive. Not to mention female representation in the 2 super fights that we'll get to later between Jenny and Lebre and Natalie Hiber. But one that stuck out to me was actually the eventual champion, Nachieli. Hasn't been super active in the past 3-4 years even. Becoming a mother, and her and Hiber, her husband, have been very busy down in Texas. A lot of things happening for them, and to see her come back on, she was back, like we had talked about, kind of in the pre-show buildup. It was, I believe, it was the Austin Open. She came back, and she competed, but this was the first grand stage she competed on, and to have other people in the bracket like Andressa Sintra, who I think when I saw come into the bracket, I was like, okay, Melissa Stricker, Ana Carolina, those are a little heavier competitors, a little more bulky. Of course, Andressa Sintra, a 3-time world champion, if I'm not mistaken, 3-time world champion. No stranger to competing in an open division, but all of the ladies were a lot, on paper, perhaps stronger, perhaps a little more physically imposing than Andressa, but Andressa was in there. She was game. She did a fantastic job. And I think that Ana Carolina and Melissa Stricker both bring a similar poise to the game. I think Anna more known for her passing, Melissa perhaps a little bit more known for her guard play, which she put on beautiful display. I mean, a lot of double sleeve, sweeps over the top, great elevations. But I think it was a really interesting mix of athletes. The big question was actually answered. How would Nachieli De Jesus, how would she do in like an environment, again, after a little bit of a layoff? And I mean, she showed up.
Let's get into her performance. Her first match was against Andressa Sintra, Gracie Baja. It was pretty much a battle of sweeps. The final score was 6-4 for Nachieli. We got to see some of Nachieli's lasso guard that she's become so well known for. Does such a great job of not only setting it up, but just keeping her opponents off balance, using it to sweep. Also showed some of her top game, able to come on top and kind of get her game going there too. What were your thoughts on that first match with Andressa and that points victory?
Well, you're right, Danny. It really was a back and forth. A lot of the same sort of utilization of sweeps and techniques between both athletes too. I think that was very interesting. It was kind of cool too. It shows that, it doesn't matter what school you go to, they both train at different places, have trained at different places their entire life, but still able to use similar techniques and similar sweeps. But, the highlight of that match is really in the last minute. Minute, and that's not taking away from the other 9 minutes of the match, because obviously it was incredibly technical jiu-jitsu between 2 world champions. It was just so crazy in the last minute. I mean, Andressa Sintra, up by an advantage, 1 minute left, gets swept, and then almost takes Nachieli's back. It's just like, it's just so crazy to see, both athletes after so long of being in the spotlight. I think a lot of athletes, when they're world-class, world champion level, they'll get kind of comfortable coasting. Even if they're losing, they'll get comfortable coasting. But neither of these ladies were willing to do that. They were still grappling. Like, they were first-year rookie black belts out there trying to get the kill. So it was I think it was a very impressive match. Definitely a nail-biter for sure.
What else was impressive was to see Nachieli's poise at the end. Like you said, she defended that back take, came up on top, and that's something that a lot of times I think people who compete very frequently have down, but Nachieli proved that this break didn't really take too much away from her, and she was able to show that poise, shake off the back take, and seal the win.
Absolutely. I agree.
On the other side of the bracket, we had Anna Carolina Vieira. She took on Melissa Stricker. Very close match. They traded sweeps. Anna won based on advantage points. So she advanced to the final against Nachielli. And I think this on paper was a final that I wouldn't say it was unexpected just because Anna's a 5-time world champion. Nachielli is a 5-time world champion. Tons of experience at the black belt level. But what were you thinking heading into this match, knowing that these two incredible world champions were going to face off?
I think the final is really crazy because, Nachielli and Anna both had really great matches leading up to the final. And for the first 5 minutes of the match, it was really close. It was really gridlocked. But it was one really strategic move by Nachielli at the very end. I mean, she had a grip on the pants, and then Anna goes to pull guard. And off of that guard pull with the pants grip, she forced Anna Carolina the Turtle, getting an advantage, and then immediately goes to my favorite pass in Jiu-Jitsu, which a lot of people might not know by looking at me, but I love the double under guard pass. I think that it shuts down De La Hiva, butterfly guard, you name it. When you are stuck in the butterfly or the double under pass, you are defending the pass. It's not really a guard. And she did a great job of that. Right at the very end, eliminated all ability for Anna Carolina to make back that advantage. And, it was a really tight final. But, when you're talking about Anna Carolina and Nachielli, those are two of the best women on the planet in the gi. And it was close. It was close, like I think any fan of jiu-jitsu who really knows the game would expect it to be.
Absolutely. And I think it's really exciting now to imagine what's going to be next for Nachielli. Like we talked about, she came back into this event off of a break. 2019, she won double gold at the World. So I think people are really interested to see if she's going to do the Pans, if she can do the Brazilian Nationals, the Worlds. What are we going to see out of Nachielli moving forward?
Yeah, I would love to see her at Pans. I'll be at Pans once again. Not competing, but I will be at Pans, and I would love to see her go. I would love to see her compete. I think that it's probably better that she does compete. If I was, from the outside, it's probably better that she does compete. I mean, she sort of pulled off a John Jones. Like y'all must have forgot kind of situation where she's off for a long time, doesn't compete for kind of a while, and just comes back and makes her mark once again, and it was very impressive. So I would love to see her at Pan Ams. I think we're definitely going to see her at World. We'll see.
Yeah, she definitely didn't miss a beat. So let's move on to the male lightweight GP. We had Jonathan Alves, we had Andy Murasaki, Carlos Enrique, Elijah Dorsey. First match of that bracket was Jonathan Alves versus Elijah Dorsey. First time these guys met, Jonathan, obviously a very experienced black belt. He's won 3 titles at the Pans as a black belt. Elijah, a newer black belt, took third at the Europeans, looked incredible. But this match was pretty much all Jonathan Alves. He ended up winning by a score of 15-0. Pulled guard, got the sweep, got those double underhooks, from the half guard, really put the pressure on Elijah, passed the guard, and just kind of kept passing and getting to positions where it was really difficult for Elijah to recover.
Yeah. Dorsey started out, I think, putting on, that signature Team Lloyd Irvin pressure. And I almost, as I was watching the match, I was like, man, it's just really, it looks heavy. It looks like Jonathan Alves is not super comfortable down there. But like you said, it was just as soon as Jonathan, and him and also, I mean, Cole Abate and Tainan Dalpra do this as well, where they get you give them one shot, and they usually make the most of it. And you make one mistake versus an AOJ guy, and it feels like you eat 6 points. And then you have a tiny window to fix that mistake. Otherwise, you're going to eat like 12 more. And we see that a lot with Tainan Dalpra. We see it a lot with Jonathan Alves. He had a great opportunity to, like you said, put points on the board and then staple Elijah Dorsey into the mat. And that was what you really saw. I mean, Elijah Dorsey is a fantastic competitor. Newer on the black belt scene, of course. But man, he just looks so incredible every time he goes out there. And you see the kind of the difference between Jonathan Alves and other people in that division is Jonathan Alves is just able to really, how do I say this? It's interesting to see Jonathan Alves slowly inch forward little by little. He got his double underhooks, and then he took like a minute on his own time to pass the half guard because he knew it's just little by little, little by little. There's no rush with Jonathan Alves. And I think it's really the pace difference that makes it so difficult to fight him. People are not used to this super duper slow pace that he's willing to put on because he's so patient. And we saw that with Elijah Dorsey. Elijah, a very explosive competitor, very technical, but explosive. And Jonathan Alves just really just slowly worked for what he wanted. And that's what we saw. And like you said, like 15, what was it, 15-0?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a very significant score differential.
That was a great point you made about Jonathan Alves, just kind of his approach strategically. I think once he gets the ball rolling and he's moving forward, you don't see him take steps backward. And I think that is the kind of strategy that's going to lead to a point differential like this.
Oh yeah, there's some athletes there's sort of a gamble, right? Let's take Ronaldo Jr. for instance. I think Ronaldo Jr. will take the gamble like, okay, I'm going to try to go 3 steps forward, even if it may make me go 4 steps back, right? There's a gamble there. But Jonathan Alves is like, I'm not taking any gambles. I'd rather move 0.25 inches forward if you tell me I will never move an inch back. It's a great deal. It's a longer deal. It's sort of like, it's an investment. You're investing in real estate on your partner, but at the same time, it takes a little bit longer. And of course, Jonathan Alves, that whole philosophy of I'm going to go tiny little inches forward, but I'm not going to get pushed back. It takes a little bit longer. But jiu-jitsu is also for the fans that appreciate good technique. Jonathan Alves is the kind of competitor that you can like study film on and learn how to do jiu-jitsu effectively. And that's, I think, what makes his jiu-jitsu really uniquely special.
On the other side of the bracket, we had Andy Murasaki taking on Carlos Enrique. Mm-hmm. This is another match that hadn't happened before. And he was able to get the submission in this match, ended up taking the back, looked incredible, kind of continued the form that he's shown the last 6+ months. He got gold at Nogi Worlds in the middleweight division, gold at the Europeans, has pretty much looked unstoppable, getting tons of submissions. And this was just kind of a continuation of the impressive jiu-jitsu that we've seen Andy display as of late.
Yeah, I think so too. Andy Murasaki actually had the first submission of the night. And what a display of usually what we see out of him too, right? Like, I mean, he took the back, and the way he took the back too, he exposed it for like a second, spun around, took the back. And one thing that I'm noticing a lot out of competitors is they're opting for the body triangle first. It's very interesting to me. They're not going straight for the hooks. They're isolating the back and making sure they have the opportunity to put the hooks in before they put the hooks in. Murasaki puts on this kind of pressure that is, it's just so interesting to see him. His hips are always facing his partner wherever they're going. His hips are always, it's almost like a compass. They're always pointing towards his partner, but he's able to shift his feet and windshield wiper his feet in as he hops over the legs and continues to apply pressure almost seemingly all at the same time. It's really, really crazy to watch. But he really did set, now we know the result of the final, but he set a sort of a precedent after that first match. Carlos Enrique is no joke. And Carlos Enrique, I mean, he was defending, inverting in some ways that I never even knew that you could do that from certain positions he was in. He was spinning underneath. He would do like a somersault / spin to escape some of the guard passes that Murasaki was doing on him. But, it was off of that tight knee cut that Murasaki was able to take the back and with that body triangle, do the choke. And, at the level that all these competitors are at, for Murasaki to go out there and finish with a bow and arrow choke is really impressive stuff.
Very impressive. And that led to a final that I think a lot of people were really, really looking forward to. Of course, we know how good Jonathan is. We talked about it already. He's 3-time pan champion at black belt, but he also has 3 wins over Andy at black belt. So they're very familiar with one another. But I think the momentum that Andy brought into this match is what really made it exciting, and what potentially could have made it different is just that Andy's been at his top form for the past 6+ months. Jonathan hasn't been quite as active as Andy, so maybe people were thinking it could be a potentially a different outcome. But what were your hopes for this match leading into it?
We want to see the meta game of jiu-jitsu getting pushed. And so when you see a matchup between 2 young people, like Andy Murasaki's age in the tail of the tape was like 22 years old. Jonathan Alves, I think he's 24. These guys are and they're both in their second year or third year at black belt. I think Jonathan Alves might be third year. Then Jonathan Alves has won pans, I think, like 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. A 3-time pan champion. Andy Murasaki has remained largely uncontested outside of, I would say, AOJ competitors.
Yeah, Jonathan Alves is his only black belt loss as a lightweight.
Yeah, and as a middleweight, it was Tainan Dalpra in the final of Worlds, right? So, like to have those guys be the stain on your black belt record competitively it's impressive stuff, especially since Andy Murasaki also got back from Nogi World. So my hope for this match, this is a very long-winded way of saying my hope for this match, was that it would be fireworks, is that Andy Murasaki would force Jonathan Alves to open up. Because I think that's the key for Jonathan. He's so technical. He's the kind of competitor that if you're the kind of competitor that likes to just Torreando pass, knee cut, open up, do so many different techniques. Jonathan's going to make you play his game. And that's tough. You got to be better at Jonathan Alves's game than Jonathan Alves, which is a very tall task, in order to beat him. And I think that's where we saw him really thrive against Andy Murasaki in the finals. He forced Andy to play his game. And it was a close match. It was a super, super close match. But, Jonathan Alves, he thrives on close matches because he knows, and he's so poised as a competitor. He's so mentally tough that he doesn't get bothered by a close match.
Yeah, Jonata ended up winning by ref's decision. It was 2-2. Yeah. They both swept each other from the 50-50 position. Mm-hmm. And I think what earned Jonata the ref's decision and the win in the end was kind of the last few moments of the match. He had double pant grips on Andy from 50-50 and was really pushing to try to sweep and get back on top, and really showed some aggression in those moments. Would you agree that you think that's what pushed the decision over the edge in Jonata's favor?
Absolutely. And that kind of goes into what I'm talking about. Jonathan Alves knows what he needs to do to win. At the end of the day, a win is a win. There's no asterisk next to your name that says this guy won by a submission or this guy won by an advantage point. And so Jonathan Alves winning by ref's decision, I think he knew, okay, this is as close, so I'm going to get a little more aggressive. I'm going to show the referees that I want it more. And at that point, the ref's decision was who wants this more? Who is going to prove to us that they won the match? And so, yeah, I do think that it was that ending thing, because Andy Murasaki wasn't able to open up pretty much all match. Jonathan played such a great initial game, the first 5 minutes, a lot of initiating close guard, mitigating any opportunity for Andy to really open up and get those around passes going. Jonathan did a great job stifling Andy. And I think people need to do that with Andy Murasaki, because if you let Murasaki get the game going, it's like a snowball going down a hill. It's just so hard to stop. But Jonathan's really good at stopping it. And I imagine your main training partner is Tainan Dalpra. Of course you're going to, have the ability to stop that kind of game.
Yeah, it was a great win for Jonathan. Now he's going to head into the PANS 2023, looking for his 4th title. And I think he's going to have a lot of momentum. I'm sure that tournament gave him a lot of confidence. Beating someone like Andy, who's been doing so well in the final, was a great win for him.
Yeah, I agree. I really do.
Let's move on to the super fights. First super fight of the night, we had Tainan Lebre, the lightweight GP champion from last year, take on Natalie Hiber, who won every major title last year besides the Worlds. This is a match I think a lot of people are looking forward to. Another rematch. They faced each other multiple times at black belt, I believe 3 times. And Natalie had won 2 of those matches. Tainan had won 1. But, of course, this is another match where it was a lot about momentum. Tainan won the lightweight GP last year, looked incredible, beat Luisa Montero, and Ana Rodriguez. So this was a match I think a lot of people were looking forward to. They're hyped for, and it really lived up to the hype.
Absolutely. I believe the last time that I saw them fight personally with my own 2 eyes, Tainan Lebre lost to Natalie Hiber. I believe it was Pan Ams. And
2021.
It was a fantastic match. Great match. And Natalie Hiber showed so much heart in that match. She did so great with an injury in that tournament and still put the pace on. Still fought so hard and did a great job. But there's something different about Tainan Dalpra now. She goes out there with this sort of attitude that's different. She fights like a champion. You know what I mean? There's the athletes who fight like they're supposed to win, and then there's athletes fight like they want to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you kind of understand what I'm talking about? So I think Tainan Dalpra is out there fighting like she's supposed to win. And that's the difference, because she went out there and immediately put passing pressure on Natalie Hiber.
Yeah, she talked about, in the lead up to the match, she talked about wanting to play guard and how that was her strength, that was Natalie's strength. But she seemed to be perfectly okay accepting the top position. Like you said, put so much pressure on Natalie right from the beginning, got that underhook from half guard, eventually passed, went for a couple arm bars throughout the match, one from side control, one from close guard near the end of the match. But like you said, she's competing like she believes she's supposed to win.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of jiu-jitsu, is the intentionality you put behind the techniques you throw. If you don't believe a technique is going to work, why are you throwing it? So Tainan Dalpra is out there swinging, shooting from the hips, and it's great because it's pinpoint accurate at the same time. The attitude is like you're shooting from the hips, but the precision is like a sniper. So, that's what we really saw. And man, Natalie Hiber she has that dog in her. She really, I couldn't believe that off of an escape of an armbar that Tainan Dalpra went for, She almost completely reversed the fight in a moment, in a second, reversed the fight. Like that was, I was watching it and I put, when you're watching a match, you put both hands on your chair and you kind of like grip it for support. It was like that. I couldn't believe it. And it became a really close match after that because there was some moments where it could have been either or. And once you saw Janaína get back into her closed guard and initiate that lapel grip under the leg, that's when I knew, okay, this match is over because that's hard to get out of. You're not going to get out of that in 5 seconds. It's going to take a minute.
Yeah, it was such an incredible match. I think we could potentially see this a lot more going forward. They're both at the top of the lightweight division. They're both going to be competing at Pans. They're both going to be competing at Worlds. So I think this is going to be maybe a rivalry that we're going to see for years to come.
Yeah, and I hope so because I think that'd be really good for the progression of jiu-jitsu. I think that they're showcasing jiu-jitsu that everybody should learn from. Everybody should be studying the jiu-jitsu that competitors like Janaína Lebre and Natalie Hiber, everyone that does jiu-jitsu should be studying these competitors.
All these super fights were highly anticipated, but I think it's safe to say that this one is one that people were extremely looking forward to. Ronaldo Jr. and Francisco Lo, just because of the kind of athletes these guys are. Obviously, they're both extremely technical, come from great teams, but they're all both really explosive, can end the match in a second. So what did you think about this match between Ronaldo Jr. and Francisco Lo?
I think this match is matchmaking done right, because sometimes you see some matches that you match them up and you think, oh my gosh, it's going to be incredible. And then it's a complete, it's a letdown. This was not a letdown. This was an awesome match. Ronaldo, first of all, Ronaldo with hair is a different animal. That man is focused. All right. And I'm me, like I fought Ronaldo Jr. like 8 times in my life. I'm a huge Ronaldo Jr. fan. I love watching that guy compete. Shoot, I liked watching him compete every time, other than when it was against me. It's not fun watching that man pass your guard. But Francisco Lo is sort of this sort of, you look at the match with Ronaldo Jr. and Francisco Lo and you're like, oh man, that would be a crazy match. And you're almost tempted to feel like, oh, but I hope it wouldn't be like a cagey match, right? It wasn't like that at all. Francisco Lo was displaying some ideas and creativity passing the guard that I think had Ronaldo Jr. having to kind of adjust, because Francisco Lo had an opportunity there towards the beginning that, Ronaldo uses the lasso lapel style of guard that is really, really hard to deal with. What do you deal with first, the lasso or the lapel? As the person on top, it's really hard to deal with that. But Lo opened Ronaldo up on bottom and almost passed. And Ronaldo really had to push away. He was turning away, getting back to his guard, and he finally got back. But Lo really challenged the guard of Ronaldo Jr. I think that is what we saw that was really cool to see was, man, you see Ronaldo kind of get Ronaldo'd a little bit. Like, you see a little taste of his own medicine, which, hey, I don't think there's a lot of people in the game that Toriano passed better than Ronaldo Jr. I think he is so consistent. He's fast. He got great cardio. But Francisco Lo was moving. And Ronaldo Jr., he did a great job dealing with it, but you could see there was a couple moments where it was a little hard to keep up with. So it was a really cool clash of styles in a way. Yeah. Even though they have a similar style, I think Francisco Lo is a little more submission heavy than perhaps Ronaldo is. Ronaldo is really great at getting positions and putting a pace that's really hard to keep up with. Francisco puts that same pace, but more in a submission-oriented goal. And I really liked it. I really liked the match. When I saw it got announced, I was like, dang, I got to see that. I got to watch that. If I don't watch that, I'll be missing out.
It was very cool to see Ronaldo really kind of pull guard and play the guard position and favor that position in the beginning of the match. Of course, he scored those advantages at the end that sealed the win, almost passing Francisco's guard with a Toriano-style pass, almost getting his back, going for that choke. But we've seen Ronaldo, even this year in the open tournaments that he's competed in, he's played a lot more guard, so it's very cool to see his game develop as he progresses as a black belt.
I think that's very important, because if you think about it, Ronaldo is very hard to sweep. That's one thing that's very apparent about his game. Not only is he good at passing the guard, he's hard to sweep from the guard. So where are you going to beat Ronaldo? You're going to have to put him on his back. And we saw that versus Tainan Dalpra. We saw different people who have bested Ronaldo in tournament largely do it from the top position. We don't see a lot of him getting swept from the top. So that's a great and intelligent thing that I imagine the coaching staff down at Atos Jiu-Jitsu is having him go through is, hey, initiate more of your guard. And we still got, and we'd be remiss to say that we didn't get to see that last minute of Ronaldo getting that whirlwind going and just passing left and right. It was really cool to see. It's almost like Ronaldo, just because he didn't get a chance to do it earlier in the match, tried to fit all that energy in at the end. He really pushed the pace hard, and he got the win because of it.
Yeah, and these are two more guys we're going to see very shortly competing at the Pans. I'm sure they're going to have great results. These guys are always putting on tremendous performances in competition.
Yeah, and you know what? Are they both competing in middleweight, or one is Ronaldo going to be competing medium heavy this year?
I believe, Francisco will be at medium heavy. I believe Ronaldo's going to be at middleweight.
Understood. Gotcha.
Now let's move on to the main event. I think it's safe to say this was one of the most anticipated gi super fights of all time, not only because it was two incredible world champions squaring off for the second time in a rematch, but also because of the 30-minute time length, the stalling modifications to the rules that really were going to force these guys to push the action. But we had Tainan Dalpra take on Isaque Bahiense. Tainan would ultimately end up getting the win, scored 19 points. Isaque did get the 2 points because of Tainan's 3 penalties, but Tainan really controlled the pace of this match from start to finish, pulled guard a couple different times throughout the match, got similar style X-guard sweeps, forced the half guard on Isaque, passed the half guard, and was really just trying to threaten Isaque from side control, really going for those submissions. I felt like Isaque did a pretty good job of preventing Tainan from getting to the mount or getting to the back, but ultimately this was pretty much Tainan in control from start to finish.
Yeah, and I think after seeing their match at the Worlds, where Tainan won his first world championship versus Isaque Bahiense, I almost thought leading up to this match that it was going to be a very closely contested contest. I really thought that. But man, to see Tainan, and that must be an indication, because Isaque Bahiense is still improving. He is still getting better and better. But Tainan must be, man, he's got that improvement level that is just painfully apparent. Beating the exact score was Tainan winning 19 points, 13 advantages, 3 penalties, to Isaque's 2 points that came from a penalty and 1 advantage. So, it's not wrong to say that it was a complete blowout. Now, where does Tainan go from here is a really big question. Danny, I want to say that like 75% of that match was spent in side control. And one thing that was just crazy to me, and it really stuck out, was, Isaque had 1 or 2 opportunities to get out of side control, and even did. But Tainan just passes right through again. He's so impressive. And it seems like he's doing something that other competitors are not doing technically. And I don't know, and I'm not sure what it is. I'm not 100% sure what it is. I'm not going to sit here and be an analyst on the IBJJF podcast and say that I have the golden formula. I don't. But I want it, well, I want to know. I want to know what the heck Tainan Dalpra is doing, because, Isaque Bahiense is a wrecking ball. He goes out there and he puts it on competitors. He just really forces them in uncomfortable situations and imposes his will on them in many instances. And Tainan, it looked like Tainan was an unstoppable force that day. It was really something.
Yeah, it was incredible, too, how he was able to dominate from the top half guard position. I think if you've watched Isaque compete before, you've seen him use the bottom half guard really effectively. A lot of times he comes up on that single leg. That's a really huge part of his game. He's very efficient from that position. So that was one of the first things that was really impressive to me. And second, you could tell that Tainan put effort into studying Isaque. I think he came in with a pretty specific game plan. And I know Professor Guy Mendez talked about that post-fight in some of his posts on social media, just mentioning how Tainan and how Jonata really came in with a specific strategy for their opponents, and I think it really showed.
Yeah, I think so too. And maybe that's what one of the things that it is, Danny, is there's a very serious, down at AOJ, there's a very serious, measured, professional approach to game planning. It's not just jiu-jitsu versus jiu-jitsu anymore. It is, how am I going to pick apart his options, his habits, his tendencies? I want to know all about the competitor, because, man, it's one match. I want to know all about the competitor I'm going against. It's not just tournaments anymore. Tournaments, one guy could lose that you don't expect to, and it shakes up the entire bracket. But a super fight, you're going against that person no matter what. So you have all the time in the world to study that person. And I think that they're taking it real seriously down there at AOJ. You can see that by the confidence out of Guy Mendez.
Tainan undefeated in IBJJF competition. This win just continued that streak. Where do you think a match like this fits into Tainan's overall legacy as a competitor?
I think it fits very well. I think that some people might have thought, oh, Isaque and him had a close match, a lot of 50-50 at Worlds. How would it go with a longer time? How would it go with this, that, and the other? And Tainan willfully accepted. He's like, all right, cool. Let's do 30 minutes. Let's do this, a different rule set. And both were game, and Tainan went out there and did exactly what I think his legacy was heading towards him doing. I think that it raises new questions. I think that his legacy at middleweight right now is headed in the direction of, future possible middleweight great. Adding his name up there with legends. Maybe he goes up a weight division. I don't know. The possibilities for Tainan Dalpra at this point are endless. He could go into no-gi. Like, there's so many things. He's focusing on, cementing his legacy in one thing at a time, or maybe he just stays middleweight. I would love to see him compete in the open division. That would be, man, imagine he goes out there and just does Tainan things in the open division. We don't know. We don't know. It's honestly, it's half scary and half really cool at the same time, because you don't know. What if I, go out and I'm like, I'll do the open division of Worlds this year, and then Tainan Dalpra is my first match. Man, I'm gonna freaking cry. So it's the possibilities are endless, Danny.
Yeah, and talking to Tainan leading up to this season, he's expressed interest in going for the Grand Slam. So he already has the Europeans gold. He now has the super fight victory. If we could see him at the Pans, the Brazilian Nationals, and the Worlds, I think he could even further position himself as one of the best pound-for-pound competitors in the world.
I think so too. I really do. And I would like to see him branch out as well, because he is a sort of a competitor who the metagame of the gi is shaken up by Tainan Dalpra. It's not, you see a lot of competitors, sometimes they'll do a similar game plan, and you see a match going to 50-50, or you see a match go into, very tight scoring, like, okay, I understand what happened there. Sometimes I'm watching Tainan Dalpra grapple and I don't really get it. I'm like, how did he even do that? How did he force Tommy Langacker in that situation? How did he do that to Ronaldo? I can't do that to Ronaldo. How did he do it? You know what I'm saying? It's different. There's something different. There's something to learn. And so I think him going and proving the Tainan Dalpra version of Jiu-Jitsu in every division that he can would be very, very good for his legacy.
Absolutely. Well, Jake, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. That was really incredible Grand Prix. Do you have any closing thoughts on the event?
My closing thoughts are, I want to see more. I want to see more of the IBJJF putting on events like this in the gi. We have a lot of no-gi shows. There's no-gi shows galore. There's a whole bunch, but not a lot of gi shows. And I love the IBJJF Grand Prix. I love, the partnership between Flo and IBJJF is awesome. The IBJJF is going through great lengths to improve the quality of their media, the quality of their matchmaking, the quality of their event production. And I love to see all of it. I would really love to see just more shows. Like the IBJJF's creativity is really showing in bright colors. And I love the shows that they're putting on. So just more. That's my big thing. More.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jake. If you guys want to watch the replays of any of these matches, you can go to FloGrappling.com. Next up, we got the Pans. They're going to go down in Kissimmee, Florida from March 21st through the 26th. That can also be watched on FloGrappling. Jake, thank you again. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see you guys soon. Take care.